So this is one thing that you can do today to increase your sales by 5%, 10%, 50%, even 100% I've seen in some circumstances. And this comes off the back of co-founding my own e-commerce business in 2013 with my brother, where we left our corporate jobs. We started an e-commerce business from our kitchen bench, and that now goes on to do multiple 7 figures per year. And I've also helped over 200 e-commerce businesses in my paid community called the Ecom Blueprint program and Up-Level Mastermind mentoring program grow to multiple 6 and multiple 7 figures per year as well with their brands. And so what I'm talking about is conversion rate optimization. So this might not sound like something that's that important, that your website is just there and you should be driving more traffic to it. But what a lot of people don't understand is that their websites are heavily under optimized. So that means that basically the effort and time and money that they're spending to get people to their site through traffic, right? We need traffic first and foremost, but if they're not optimally converting or continuing to increase that conversion rate, it's basically like a leaking bucket. People are falling through the bottom of that bucket. And so where conversion rate optimization comes into it is when that traffic arrives, getting as many people as possible to convert. And so if you think about the differences between 2% to 2.5%, that might sound like small numbers because we're talking about percentage points, but that's a 20% increase in sales that you haven't even thought about, prior to that. And that's with the same amount of traffic, the same amount of ad spend, the same amount of everything. They're just converting at a higher rate. And so this is where, we talk about within our paid communities, something I call the magic 3. And that's anything to do with increasing your revenues and sales for e-commerce business comes down to one or multiple of these 3 things, but one predominantly, which is the traffic we've got to get to the site, the conversions we have to convert on the site, and the third one is actually the lifetime value. So getting people to spend more over their lifetime. And so that middle pillar there's only 3 for a reason, is so crucial. If we can capture more people to increase the conversion rate, you are going to achieve way more success with the e-commerce business, because it says a lot of things if you can or can't convert. If you're converting at a very high rate, that means you need more traffic to be filtered through. Keep scaling, keep pushing. If you're converting at a low rate, no amount of traffic is going to solve your problem, right? You're probably running unprofitably if that's the case, right? If you're converting less than 1%, depending on obviously the product and the price point and whatnot, it's very hard to be profitable at those sorts of rates. So you need to be looking at the minimum kind of 2.5 to 3% plus to run a very sustainable, profitable business. And so here are some ways that you can go and increase your conversion rate. Firstly, you need to look at if it's mobile optimized. So yes, we create our websites on desktop, but if it's not mobile optimized, then you're going to be missing out on a serious amount of opportunity, because 80% of people will be looking at your site on mobile. So a lot of people make the mistake of developing it on a desktop and then not considering so many people are going to be seeing it on mobile. So that's a massive consideration if you haven't thought about it before. The second one is the load speed. So oftentimes people are getting some clicks on ads, they're actually getting traffic that the pixel is picking up on, but it's not actually loading fast enough for people to have the patience to stick around. And so that people just bounce straight away. So it's got a high bounce rate. So you need to make sure that your load speed is decent enough that it's going to keep people around, and then enticing enough. So what that comes down to, the third thing, is our messaging and the clarity we have of things on site. So if people don't resonate with you or get the point or the message in the first 3 seconds of visiting your site, thinking that they're the right person, the right place at the right time, again, they're going to bounce. Even if your product is relevant for them and you've driven them to your site from some traffic source, they're not going to hang around. So your messaging needs to be really clear, needs to be really punchy, and say, this is you, this is what you need, we can help you here. The fourth thing when they're on site is simplicity. Confused mind never buys. So your website needs to be extremely simple all the way from its menu bars, having short and sharp, 3 to 5 menu items, to how you actually navigate on the homepage. Have a very clear cover photo with a call to action, and then validation and extra products and social proofing all below that. Okay, it's really important that it's simple and clear layout all across the website. Otherwise, you'll just lose people. That actually comes from a professionalism perspective. People know the difference between a drop shipping site and a normal regular store now. So you need to be really switched on to how people think and what skepticism comes into their mind when they're on a website. And the fifth thing, which I would say is probably the most significant, that was obviously all very, very important. Social proofing is one of the most foundational things that people look for. Again, a high percentage, such as 85 to 90% of people, will look for social proofing before they go and purchase, right? Before they make a purchasing decision. So what does that mean? Reviews, user-generated content of people actually using the product, demonstrations, just really, really impacts on the conversion conversion rate of your site. So even a really clear example is we've found through data and testing that if your pop-up, meaning the sign-up form on your website, has a person in it holding the product, for example, that will convert at a higher rate when it doesn't. So having a person and that relatability is really important. Now, Meta has also come out, basically announced, even though we knew it for a long time, that, you know, you should always have people in your ads or your content that is the target demographic. Why you do otherwise, I'm not quite sure, but it works the same way on websites. So just be really conscious, really aware of that. If you're targeting young females, there's no point having an older female or male in the key photos on your website. Okay, so it needs to be really clear about who you're targeting through the messaging and the visual content, and then masses amount of social proof, and volume matters and recency matters. Okay, there's no point having 1,000 reviews, but they're from months and months and months ago. That's not any trust factors associated. Any form of doubt that someone would have going to your site and looking at your product is going to make them bounce straight away. So we need to keep bridging the trust gaps until eventually they can go and convert, which can take some time. It depends on the product and the buyer life cycle of your target demographic. But they're the 5 major things that if you can increase your conversion rate just a couple of percentage points, 0.5%, 1%, we've seen massive increases of people's conversion rates in the first couple of months of coming through our programs, because it's things that seemed obvious to a person were just assumed, when the assumptions is what really kills businesses. Okay, if you don't ever assume that your customer knows something or should know something, it's basic simplicity, user experience coupled with speed and mobile optimization, and you're setting us up for a very, very, very successful website. Obviously, if that's the product that people want to buy, and then you just have to drive traffic to it. Okay, so they're my tips for the CRO, improving the conversion rate. You know, focus on the conversion issue you might have before you go and spend more money, spend more time and effort driving more traffic. If you can increase that conversion rate by, as I say, 0.1, 0.2, 0.5, or 1%, then you're going to put yourself in a lot of great stead to continue to scale and grow your business. All right. So look, hopefully this was valuable. If it was, you can click on the link below where we talk about how we help e-commerce businesses day to day reach their first 10K all the way up to, you know, 6-figure months. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, give me a subscribe, and look out for other videos that are like this. My mission is to help e-commerce businesses in any form or any capacity on all platforms. So I really appreciate you being here till the end, and hopefully you got the value that you came into it for. So other than that, thanks for being here, and I'll catch you in the next video.